Good morning, students. Today we will go through experimental epidemiological studies. Experimental or intervention studies. In the experimental or intervention studies, the investigators test the effect of an intervention on the events taking place in the study. Okay. An experimental or intervention studies may be controlled or non-controlled. Controlled means there will be a comparison group. Non-controlled means there will not be a comparison group. Experimental trials can be controlled trials or non-controlled trials. Controlled trials can be randomized controlled trials or non-randomized controlled trials. Non-randomized controlled trials are otherwise known as quasi-experimental trials. Randomized controlled trials can be blinded randomized controlled trials or not blinded randomized controlled trials. Now we will go through each one separately. Now we can go through controlled trials. Controlled trials or controlled intervention studies will have an experimental group and a control group. Control group is the another name for comparison group. Non-controlled trials. Non-controlled trials or non-controlled intervention studies will have an experimental group only. There will be no control group or comparison group. Controlled experimental trials. In a controlled experimental trial or clinical trial, the experimental group receives the drug or treatment or intervention to be evaluated, while the control group or comparison group receives a placebo, no treatment, or the standard treatment. Non-controlled experimental trials. In a non-controlled experimental trial or clinical trial, the experimental group receives the drug or treatment or intervention to be evaluated, while there is no control group or there is no comparison group. A controlled experimental study or a controlled experimental trial or clinical trial can be randomized controlled trial or non-randomized controlled trial. Now we can see what is randomized controlled trial. Okay. Non-randomized controlled trials are also known as quasi-experimental trials. What is randomization? Randomization is the prospective assignment of subjects through a random method into an experimental group or a control group. The researcher is randomly allocating the participant into experimental group or control group by a random method. Okay, there are 10 participants. The researcher is randomly selecting 5 people into investigational group and 5 people into the control group. Study participants are randomly allocated to either investigational group or control group. Why randomization is done? Randomization ensures that the participants in both groups, both experimental group or control group, are similar as far as possible with respect to all known or unknown factors. that might affect the outcome. There are so many factors. Known factors are there, unknown factors are there. So, those in experimental group and a control group should be similar based on all factors. That's why randomization is done. Randomized control trial. Steps. We can go through the steps. Okay. Patients are randomly assigned to either treatment group or control group. Then they are followed up. Okay, some people in the treatment group develop the outcome. Some people in the control group also develop the outcome. Then the outcomes or results in the treatment group and the control group are compared. Now we can see. Start with a group of subjects from a defined population. Randomly allocate subjects in two groups, treatment group or control group. Treatment group is otherwise known as experimental group, and the control group is otherwise known as comparison group. Follow up these study subjects in both the groups and observe outcome. After that, compare outcome in the treatment and control group. Direction. Direction of study is always forward. So it is prospective study. Non-randomized control trials. Okay. Control trials without randomization are intervention studies in which allocation to either experimental group or control group is not based on randomization. It is done when randomization is not possible. So two clinics are there at two different places. We cannot randomly allocate people to two clinics. So those who attend one clinic get experiment. Those who attend another clinic get the control of comparison treatment. Okay. Also known as quasi-experimental trials or quasi-experimental studies. It is done when randomization is not possible or not ethical. Assignment of subjects may be biased, which may influence the study results. Blinding. Okay, what is blinding? Blinding is otherwise known as masking. It is a scientific procedure by which those who are involved in the research are made unaware of the allocation of individuals into experimental or control group. It can be single blind, double blind, or triple blind trials. Okay. Single blind trials means subjects do not know to which group they are allocated. Subjects or participants do not know to which group they are allocated. But a researcher knows. Okay. The term double-blind trial is used when both the investigator and the participants are unaware of the type of intervention. Triple-blind design. So patients, clinicians, and statisticians or person measuring the outcome are unaware of which group is subjected to intervention or comparison. Now we can go through different types of randomized controlled trials. Randomized controlled trials can be either concurrent parallel type trial or crossover type trial. Concurrent parallel type trial and a crossover type trial. Now we can go through each one separately. Randomized concurrent parallel type clinical trial. Okay. Patients are randomly assigned to two groups. One is experimental group who are exposed to a treatment and a control group who are not exposed to a treatment. They are followed up for a period of time. Then we compare the outcome in the exposed individual with the outcome in the unexposed individual. So in concurrent parallel type design, where two treatments A and B are given so that one group receives only treatment A, while another group receives only treatment B. Sometimes treatment A may be new treatment. Treatment B may be old treatment or placebo or no treatment. During the study period, one group get treatment A and another group get in comparison intervention. That can be no intervention, that can be placebo, or that can be a standard treatment. So there are some ethical issues in concurrent parallel study design because one group is denied of new treatment. One group is getting new treatment for full time and one group is not getting that treatment for the full time of study. To avoid that, there is another study design, crossover type clinical trial. The study subjects are randomly allocated to either treatment group or control group. And after a sufficient treatment period and a washout period, they are switched to the other treatment for the same period of time. Now we can see the framework. Randomized crossover type clinical trial. So, patients are randomly assigned to treatment A or treatment B. Treatment A is exposure group. Treatment B means placebo or comparison group. Then some period of time, one group get treatment A, another group get treatment B. Then there is a washout period. After that, first group get treatment B and the second group get treatment A. Okay, now we can see in detail. Okay, advantages. What are the advantages of crossover type clinical trials? All subjects serve as their own controls. Okay, smaller sample size needed than in concurrent parallel study design. All subjects receive treatment at least during some period of time. So it is more ethical compared to concurrent parallel clinical trial. What are the disadvantages? Washout period may be long or unknown. We don't know how much time the drug remains in the body. So washout period may be long or unknown. Cannot be used for treatments with a permanent treatment effects, sometimes like antibiotics or antiparasitic treatment. There will be permanent treatment effects. So in these type of cases, we cannot use crossover type clinical trials. Thank you.